In 2021, Saudi Arabia announced something the world had never seen. A city, 170 kilometers long, 500 meters tall, 0 cars, 0 streets, 9 million people living inside 2 giant mirrored walls, slicing through the desert like a blade. The world called it impossible. Saudi Arabia called it the future. So why, right now, is the construction site completely silent? When the line was first announced, it broke the internet. The renders were breathtaking. A city unlike anything ever attempted in human history. No pollution, no traffic, everything you needed, within a 5-minute walk, and a high-speed train that could take you from one end to the other in under 20 minutes. Millions of people watched, millions shared it, and the world started asking the same question. Could this actually be built? In this documentary, we're going to answer that question. We'll look at what the line actually promised, why Saudi Arabia really built it, what the engineers discovered when construction began, and what is actually happening on that desert site right now in 2026. The story is not what you think. Let's start with the vision. Because to understand what went wrong, you first have to understand just how extraordinary this idea was. The line was not just a building. It was not just a city. It was a complete reimagining of how human beings could live on this planet. 170 kilometers long, all of it enclosed, all of it climate controlled, all of it powered by renewable energy. No cars, no streets, 0 carbon emissions, everything connected by high-speed transit and artificial intelligence. The designers said you'd never need to travel more than 5 minutes on foot to reach a school, a hospital, a park, or a shop. All stacked vertically inside a structure so large, it would have its own internal weather system. And the mirrors on the outside? They weren't just decoration. They were designed to reflect the surrounding desert, making a structure the size of a small country virtually invisible from the outside. The world had never seen anything like it. Architecture firms called it revolutionary. Urban planners called it the future of cities. And critics called it something else entirely. But why would Saudi Arabia, a desert kingdom sitting on one of the largest oil reserves in the world, spend $500 billion building this? The answer changes everything. Saudi Arabia has a problem. It's called oil, or more specifically, the end of oil. For decades, oil made Saudi Arabia one of the wealthiest nations on earth. But by the 2010s, the writing was on the wall. Electric vehicles were rising, renewable energy was accelerating, and the world's appetite for fossil fuels was slowly, but unmistakably, starting to decline. NEOM was announced in 2017 as part of Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia's strategic plan to diversify its economy beyond oil. The name combines the Greek word neo, meaning new, with the Arabic word mostaqbal, meaning future. Together, new future. The line was the centerpiece of that plan, not just a city, a statement, a signal to the entire world that Saudi Arabia was no longer just a nation that pumped oil out of the ground. It was a nation building the future. Tourism, technology, foreign investment, international talent. The line was designed to attract all of it and replace oil as the engine of the Saudi economy. The vision was compelling. The logic was sound. The ambition was extraordinary. So what stopped it? If the plan made sense, why is that desert site silent today? Here's where the story gets complicated. Building the line wasn't just ambitious. From an engineering standpoint, it was arguably the most complex construction challenge in human history. Start with the foundation. Each of the project's early modules required 3.5 million cubic meters of concrete, supported by over 5,500 foundation piles, some plunging 70 meters below the desert floor. 70 meters down, just for the foundation, before a single floor went up. Then there was water. Building anything in the desert requires enormous quantities of water, for concrete mixing, for workers, for the site itself. In the early stages, water was being shipped to the construction site by tanker, a logistical problem that engineers acknowledged was not a scalable solution. And then there was the high-speed transit system, the train that would carry passengers from one end of the line to the other in under 20 minutes. At that speed and distance, the technology required doesn't fully exist yet. The closest existing candidate for building this infrastructure no longer exists. None of this made the line impossible. Engineers solve impossible problems every day. But it did make it something else entirely. Expensive, slow, and far more complicated than the promotional video suggested. By February 2024, over 90 million cubic meters of material had been excavated, one of the largest earth-moving operations in history. The scale of what was being attempted was genuinely staggering. But engineering wasn't the only obstacle. In 2024, something shifted. Oil prices started falling. By mid-2025, oil was hovering around $71 per barrel, well below the 90-plus level Saudi Arabia's budget requires for fiscal balance. The money that was supposed to fund the line was shrinking, fast. And then the reports started coming out. The Wall Street Journal revealed an internal audit showing evidence of deliberate manipulation by project managers. Bloomberg reported the first phase would only cover 2.4 kilometers, not the 170 promised. A 2023 draft board presentation estimated full completion in 2080 at a cost of $8.8 trillion. 25 times Saudi Arabia's entire annual budget, $8.8 trillion. Let that number sit for a moment. Then in November 2024, the founding CEO of NEOM resigned. His replacement came from a finance background, not engineering. The signal was clear. The era of unlimited ambition was over. The era of financial reality had begun. On September 16, 2025, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund formally suspended all construction on the line. Of the planned 170 kilometers, only 2.4 kilometers of foundation work had been completed, roughly 1.4% of the total. No mirrored walls, no vertical forests, no high-speed train, just idle drilling rigs, empty concrete plants, and a workforce that peaked at over 100,000 workers now largely gone. So does that mean the line has failed? That depends entirely on who you ask. Saudi officials insist the project is not cancelled. NEOM told Bloomberg that the line remains a strategic priority. A redesign is reportedly underway, a more modest version that uses the existing infrastructure in a different way. But critics have pointed to something far darker than construction delays. Thousands of people were forcibly displaced to make way for the line. Villages were razed. The Huwaitat indigenous tribe, who had lived in that region for generations, were removed from their land. Members of the tribe who resisted were reportedly imprisoned. One man was sentenced to death for refusing to leave. That story never made it into the promotional videos. And then there's the question of whether the line could ever have worked as a city, even if it was built. Could 9 million people actually want to live inside two walls in the Saudi desert? The population target for 2030, once set at 1.5 million residents, has been revised down to fewer than 300,000. And even that number relies on attracting international companies, foreign workers, and global talent to a location that currently has no infrastructure, no community, and no proven track record. Imperial College London engineering professor Mike Cook put it simply. He called it, and this is his direct quote, such a crackpot idea. But supporters argue the dream itself, even if unrealized, has permanently changed how the world thinks about cities. So what actually happens next? Here is what we actually know. The line, as originally announced, 170 kilometers, 500 meters tall, 9 million residents, is not being built. Not now, possibly not ever in that form. The project has been scaled back to focus on completing a 2.4-kilometer stretch. This shorter section potentially includes a massive stadium for the 2034 World Cup. A significant redesign is reportedly already underway. Architects are working on a more modest project that could utilize the existing infrastructure in a totally different manner. There is now a greater focus on industrial sectors, including becoming a hub for data centers. Not exactly the gleaming city of the future that was promised. But not everything in NEOM has stalled. The green hydrogen plant, an $8.4 billion joint venture designed to produce 600 tons of carbon-free hydrogen daily, was 80% complete by early 2025. Green ammonia exports are expected to begin in 2027. That part of the NEOM dream is real, tangible, and moving forward. As for the line itself, one Saudi official, speaking to the Sunday Times, summed up the situation in a way no promotional video ever could. "We spent too much. We rushed at 100 miles an hour. We need to reprioritize." Whether the line ultimately fulfills its original vision or becomes something very different entirely, it has already changed how the world thinks about the future of cities. It asked questions that urban planners will debate for decades. Can a city exist without cars? Can 9 million people live in a single structure? Can ambition alone reshape the laws of physics, economics, and human behavior? The line didn't answer those questions, but it forced the world to ask them. And sometimes, that's where every revolution starts. That's the real story of the line. Not the version in the promotional renders, but the version playing out right now in the Saudi desert. If you enjoy documentaries that go beyond the headlines, exploring the world's most ambitious engineering projects, future cities, and the megastructures shaping our planet, subscribe to BuildSculptor. New documentaries every week. Next time, we're traveling to China to explore a proposed dam so enormous that engineers say it could literally slow the rotation of the Earth. Don't miss it.